Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining this week's Resumania. This is going to be our 11th episode that we are recording today. If you are here or if you're watching the video on YouTube and you are interested in having your resume reviewed live, you can email it at stemnetworkdiscord@gmail.com. We do these sessions every Friday at 8 o'clock U.S. Central. And you're also welcome to come to the Discord, and we have a resume review channel. If you don't want to, throw up your experience in front of everyone and have it recorded, you can just drop it down in the channel, and someone will stop by and give a few notes or mark it up in there. Obviously, this session here is being recorded. When we post the video, we'll announce that in our announcements channel. And please keep in mind that this is like a U.S.-centric kind of point of view that we're coming from. A lot of the people who tend to chime in are born and raised in America. And even within the country, your mileage may vary. You're not obligated to take this advice. We're not making any promises. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But we want to just help everyone that we can help. Now, with all that being said, Emily, would you like to take it away?
Sure. All right. So we have a resume up today from our user Ken's 325. I don't know if he can be here today, but maybe he can just join in if he figures it out. All right, so at the beginning, I like to say, do kind of like a first look of what you guys think about this resume. And of course, let me know if the screen goes black and I can reset it. But just looking at this resume, what are your thoughts about layout, about, formatting?
I think there's room for pushing things around. Not that they necessarily need it, but if they want to throw on another project or if they get more bullet points under their experience, they can make space for that by bringing the margins out a little bit more. The top looks like it could be condensed some, maybe clean up the skills or bring the margins out in the skills actually, because that seems to be a very narrow portion relative to everything else. And the headers are quite large and bold.
Agree with that?
I can't tell if I like or dislike the this might be something for later, but putting the educational institution as an experience and then listing the entire duration of your degree for like a few things that you did during your degree.
Oh, you mean the lower part, the Florida Institute of Technology, their projects, rather than having an academics section?
Is it bad that fooled me? Like, all I saw was, August 2017 to 2021. Wow. And then the moment he mentioned like education, and I read Florida Institute of Technology, and I was like, oh wow, he totally put that as experience.
I mean, it is experience. It's just academic experience, rather than professional experience. You guys would like to see it split out into a different section, you're saying?
I think it deserves to be in a project section at least, because listing it as it is now, to me, at least, because I don't know the specifics of it all, seems misleading. It seems like just a way to basically look like you have multiple extra years of experience that you don't actually have.
Okay. Any other thoughts in terms of, formatting wise? I personally think the margins for the actual content are pretty narrow. Like all of the bullet points and the skill section, you really have like an inch and a half to 2 inches of white space to the left. I think maybe decreasing that indent might help a little bit. But I don't know. We'll see. I also don't like gray font, which the skill section is gray font, and I think maybe the contact is gray font too. I'm also not really sure why there are 2 emails. I'm gonna write a question mark at the top. Like, would the hiring manager forward the emails to both, or just pick one, or what? And so that was a little question mark there. Don't love the gray font. Gray font. Sad face. And that's just because it's much easier to read white or to read black font. And I think I agree sort of so far with having the education bit at the bottom be broken up into a different academic project section. But I'm going to wait until we get to that section to actually write it down. Thoughts on how the skills section is done?
Ailthorn has a comment saying skills could be broken up into sections, i.e. programming languages, analysis tools, etc.
Okay. Yep. That's fair enough for sure. I noticed that they list CAD programs such as SolidWorks and Creo, and they also list CAD as a separate item, which isn't a big deal, but it's just a little annoying. It seems like getting like kind of a double count almost. Like they're trying to kind of fill it up a little bit. Top-down design is like iffy in my mind.
I was going to say a couple of them read sort of iffy to me, but I don't know if there's like specific terminology in different fields or something. But I feel similarly with product development, troubleshooting. Those are the ones that, I mean, a little bit additive manufacturing. Like if you have a specific experience, I feel like it's not like, does that just mean you know a lot about it, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think skills section isn't always the best place to write concepts. I like to usually see like software, and then we see the concepts down below, like in the experience section of when you've worked with that specific concept. So like there are a couple. I agree, Grayson, if that's who's speaking. Additive manufacturing is a pretty wide field. Perhaps more specific, like if you have like experience with like a specific type of additive manufacturing software. I know that a lot of 3D printers, a lot of people use Fusion 360 for 3D printing, and I know that there are a couple of other like programs that are specific to additive manufacturing. Maybe those would be a better idea to list. And then like integrate the additive manufacturing part like down below when you've used it. Top-down design is very generic to me. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure about that. But like GD&T is very like specific. And so is like soldering, and then all of the other software skills seem to be a lot more specific. But it seems like there are just a couple of concepts that maybe, I don't know if maybe they don't belong there, or if they do, maybe putting them all in one section maybe would help it out a little bit better, rather than kind of like blending them together. So I'm going to write that here. I'm going to say break out into specific sections. like software. Okay. All right. Oh, and I skipped over the education section. It looks fine other than BS is abbreviation of 2 words, not just one. But other than that, looks fine.
You're not going to call up the date?
Why?
I thought you preferred putting it down by the degree. Don't care as much anymore.
I guess not. I know what they mean. Chase is saying, "Oh, shouldn't May 2021 be here because it's when they received the degree, not when they, did this." I guess it was also when they were at the school, but usually it's like when they received the degree. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just feeling lenient tonight. All right. Let's get into these bullet points. Okay, so their first, most recent experience of production engineer, support project managers on all phases of related projects. I'm going to say that's like a super, super, super generic phrase that I don't really know what that means. It seems like they go into maybe more detail with the lower bullet points. Like the second bullet point is design production cradles, jigs, and fixtures using Siemens NX and Rhino to optimize production processes and provide technical guidance to production floor. So that's a much better bullet point, I think, than the first. I don't even know if the first bullet point is really needed because it's not really telling me anything new, right? Yeah, so I'm gonna actually take that out and just start with design, and that's a stronger bullet point, anyways. Reveal technical drawings and documentation to ensure customer requirements met. So ideally, we would have a little bit more than that, like maybe the scale, like the number of drawings you're reviewing, or like what sort of customer requirements are you looking for. And when you review drawings, you don't only look for customer requirements, you also want to look for like that the drawing makes sense and that it meets the company that you're working for's requirements as well. Do you guys think that's too generic, or do you think it's okay?
I think it's too generic as well.
Okay. So, and then if they have some sort of number here, even if it's just like a ballpark number, like 100 or 20, then it kind of gives me a better idea of what sort of like what their level of involvement is with drawing checking, because maybe that's only like a portion of their job. Or maybe it's that's only what they do. So that kind of gives me a sense of scale. I'd say maybe like be a little bit more specific here. And I don't know what they're making.
Also, like by technical drawings, since I'm in R&D, when I hear technical drawing, I'm thinking like schematic, but like there's different types of schematics. Like there's some that are like literally, resistor, inductor, capacitor, like MOSFET level, like all I could do like circuit analysis level schematic. But then there's other schematics that are more for production. So he's saying, or they're saying they're a production engineer. So maybe we need to specify what exact kind of technical drawings that might help. I don't know.
So when I read this, I think of like manufacturing drawings. So like a drawing that a like mechanical engineer would make and give to a person on the manufacturing floor to actually make. But of course, I could be wrong and I could be misinterpreting that. But that's kind of what I get from that, as what technical drawings mean.
No, I think you're
I think
right,
just
but
the
it
fact
might.
that it,
Oh, go ahead.
I think just by the fact that it is a question, sort of just shows that it needs to be expounded upon.
Okay, we'll say like there also is too detailed. Like you can be too detailed here. Like if you give me the name, like I don't remember if it was last week, but somebody was giving us like AS 9054, and I was like, I don't know what that means. Just give me. I think you can get too detailed, but you want to like kind of find a good middle ground so that you're explaining what you're doing, but not like so much that like the average person doesn't really get it. So I'm gonna write what type. Was that you, Integral? Maybe. I don't know if they're on here.
It was Grayson and I. We both had something to say, but I know what y'all are talking about. Like, AS like 200, like a very specific document versus like, an electrical schematic versus like a mechanical draft or a 3D model or something like that. But I think it is a context thing. Because a draft, a schematic, and those are all technical drawings. I think so. I really do think it is like it's context specific.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so they could be more specific there, I think. All right, let's look at the last bullet point. Service liaison between project managers, production, comma, Oxford comma, and purchasing to troubleshoot issues and develop solutions. Okay. I want to hear more about the issues they found and how they were able to solve them. Because that is, to me, how they're using their like engineering skills and knowledge, like to solve problems. That's like huge. So being more specific about like what problem they solved and how.
Yeah, Ailthorn mentions that it kind of reads like they copied their job description rather than described what they were doing. And Grayson points out in response that they've only been there for about half a year. So maybe that is exactly what they did until they get more experience.
Yeah, so the problem with served as a liaison between X, Y, and Z is I read it in my head. In my head, I read it as I talk to people. I talk to X group, Y group, and Z group. And that's not really impressive in of itself. It's like what you're able to do by bringing those groups together and like what you're able to make out of that. So like if you're troubleshooting issues between these groups and you're actually like solving the problems, like, hey, maybe group A, was really bad at communicating and you helped them get on the same page as group B. That's, I guess, a little bit more tangible than just saying like, oh, I acted as a liaison. I just like, talked to these different groups. Does that make sense how the person can be more specific here?
I think it does. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because like, you could be a tester and you could start as just doing testing, but then you might end up actually finding yourself having to coordinate the group. And that's something that is not quite the same as, oh, I just test things.
Yeah, so being more specific, I think, will help. All right. So any other thoughts about this section? I mean, they've only been working there since May, so I didn't expect it to be a really huge section.
Maybe I know a decent buzzword. I think the word that they're looking for, that in the last bullet point, serve as a liaison. I believe it's called cross-functional.
No, you're fired.
Oh, I'm fired. Okay, thanks.
Sorry. I think
Nice
cross-functional
knowing
just
you.
means cross-functional in my mind means you do more than one thing. And that isn't
Oh, okay.
that's kind of what I interpret that word to mean. I understand I maybe I'm just against buzzwords in general, but I think being more specific and getting like using like basically the simplest words possible to describe what you did, the better in my mind. Cross functional is fine. It just means like one like you did multiple things. Like it's nothing really more than that in my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So let's move on to this. I think it's an internship. I blacked it out, so I don't really know. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It says intern. I'm silly. Okay. Modeled a proposed invention in a top-down assembly. Okay. So they're mentioning.
Is it kind of, this might be a very trivial point, but is it necessary to say contract mechanical engineering intern as opposed to just mechanical engineering intern?
I don't think it's hurting them. I don't know what perhaps that was their specific title. I'm not sure. We would have to ask the person, but I don't think it's not like moving them to another line or anything like that. So I think it's okay. And it kind of does separate it out from the other internship below. But they do say top-down assembly, which I think they're trying to tie in the top-down design in their skill section. So they model the proposed invention in top-down assembly for OSHA standard ladders using Fusion 360. Okay.
Ailthorn asks, what did the proposed invention do and how did modeling the part help the company? And from the phrasing of this, I don't think this bullet point really talks about that invention at all. It just says it existed.
Yes. I know some like invention things can be walking the line of proprietary depending on what it is and like how far into the development it is. So it's a device for, I'm guessing it's something for OSHA standard ladders, but that's pretty much all we've got going for us. All we kind of know what it is. Ideally, I'd like to know more about it, but if we can't like hear more about it, then I guess we kind of have to deal with what we've got. NDAs and proprietary stuff is a little tricky in that way.
Yeah, I can see the complications there.
Yeah.
I will also say that without describing the invention at all, I don't know whether or not it's really worth mentioning the OSHA standard ladders because I just don't really see, I don't think that provides any context. I mean, it has something to do with a ladder, but that still doesn't provide useful information.
Yeah, and that's your world, Chase, isn't it?
Yes. Not that I've done a lot of ladders specifically, but we do still do ladders, and the company that I work for was originally founded as the aluminum ladder company, so kind of our thing.
Well, I will defect to your expertise if we have any more questions. But you're saying that the OSHA standard ladders is still such a broad pool. Is that what you're trying to say? That it doesn't really help us kind of figure out what they're talking about?
Yeah. So when I see OSHA standard ladders, I think that's good. It follows OSHA regulations. But what that tells me is that the rungs are within a certain range of distance apart from each other. That they are 7 inches or more from the wall that they're mounted to if it's a fixed ladder. That if there's an overhead obstruction, it's some distance away, or if it's within a different range, that there's an angled piece to deflect a potential collision with your head. It doesn't tell me about the ladder itself, other than it's within some range of typical dimensions.
Okay. And do you think that's helpful, or do you think that could go?
I think it says absolutely nothing about the invention.
Think that could go. Okay. Okay, so we can take that out. I agree.
I do want to clarify, depending on what the invention is, that could be a great thing to have in there. But I would rephrase it to say that it follows the specific OSHA regulations. So that would be something under OSHA 1910 subpart D and some other specific subsection. I think including that could look nice and really shows, which regulations you're following and that you kind of know what you're talking about there. And I'm saying that, like, I see that as an opportunity to show off a little bit.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the invention should be the one that's to OSHA standards, not necessarily the ladders that they're designing to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
If it affects the regulation at all, then that's good to have in there.
I don't want to assume what this is because I don't know. So it's a little hard to edit. I wish there were here. I'm going to say, please give us more information. But if they can't, then they can't. But I'm going to, at least try. More info.
Suggest something along the lines of deliver 3D model of proprietary parts for OSHA standard ladders using Fusion 360, resulting in on-time delivery to customer and maintain production timelines, something like that.
Yep. Ailthorne's right there. I'm missing a result. And Ailthorne's result would be, delivered models on time or whatever. I think that would be definitely something good to. But see, the problem is because it's a proposal. I think that they probably did their 2 months of work and then probably stopped. So I don't know if they actually ended up delivering. But if they do, I'm going to say, did you deliver models? Because 2 months is a drop in the bucket, as y'all know that are in the real world. Okay. So they improved the existing design, giving the requirements of material, product function, and increased manufacturability of components. I don't know if that reads well to me.
Yeah, but improved design of what?
So they improved the existing design. So it seems like the material is a requirement, the product function is a requirement, but how is the increased manufacturability of components also a requirement?
I think that's supposed to be a separate thing.
Like they increased the manufacturability?
And also I increased the manufacturability of components on top of those other, on top of improving it given the requirements of material and product function.
Okay, so we should take this increase manufacturability of components, let's put it here, right there, and say, and improved existing design and increased manufacturability of components, giving requirements of material and product function.
And then, but then of what thing, right?
Of the invention is what I'm guessing. Is that not something I can assume? Well,
I didn't, but if you guys think that it's a fair assumption, I don't think I think it should be mentioned explicitly, personally.
Okay. So improved existing invention design?
Yeah, I mean, I that also I'm a little shaky on. I don't like the phrase proposed invention either, but however they end up reconciling these different points we've made.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it is a really, really short internship. So I'm guessing someone had an idea and we're like, hey, Bill, can you model this up for me? And they were like, sure. And so they did it. And that was the internship. That's kind of what I get from this. But, all right, on to the next one. Any other comments for this? Nope. Okay. All right. Utilize the end of manufacturing to support product development, rapid prototyping, and production. Okay, we want to be more specific. What did you make? What did you do? Why did you do it? I think this font is also gray. Is that me?
Yeah. Looks grayish.
What did you make?
Also, the phrase utilized additive manufacturing, I think, is kind of strange to me.
I think it's okay. I think that, if some parts were normally, made with a CNC and you're like, hey, let me use a 3D printer to do it and it'll save a bunch of money and time or whatever. I think that's kind of a fair way to do it.
I see. I misread it.
Yeah.
I see.
That's kind of how I interpreted. But again, they aren't saying what they're making or really why 3D printing was better.
I was still thinking about it in the sense of additive manufacturing being a concept. So I was very confused.
Yeah, no worries. So I think we need more about that. This maybe the second bullet point will give us a little more information. Design multiple parts. Multiple, I usually say, why don't you just say the number? And molds for 3D printing and plastic injection molding uses SolidWorks and Fusion 360. Okay. Utilize relevant design for manufacturer principles to ensure successful manufacturing. I might almost wanted to split it into 3D printing and plastic injection molding separately. Because something that you design for 3D printing is going to be designed a lot differently than if you design something for plastic injection molding, just because of the way the two are manufactured. I think that's what they're trying to say with that last sentence or last phrase. What do you guys think about splitting that up? I think they have enough space to do it.
Yeah. Once they remove that first line from the first experience.
Let's see. I'm going to say 3D printing and injection molding separately. And they don't say so they say, I guess this is kind of hard to do in resumes, but they are telling, not showing. I want show, don't tell. So don't tell me that you used principles and you were successful or to ensure successful manufacturing. Give me an example of how you used these principles and how you made a good part that actually worked or, had the proper tolerances or whatever. Kind of show, don't tell. All right. And then I'm going to say that here, show, don't tell. Hopefully they watch this. If not, I can explain them. All right. This was a longer internship. This was almost 9 months. It's almost a year. So maybe if they go more into a little more of the details of what they were actually making, they can kind of be a little more specific. All right, so I think let's move on to. So we are suggesting that this goes into a separate academic or project section. These last 3 projects. All right, I'm going to write that here because I think that might be a good idea. Projects. Okay, autonomous farming in space. How cool. Let's learn about it. Collaborate with a team. How many people? To design and manufacture a system to autonomously grow plants through robotic functions, electrical systems, and mechanical structures. Okay, do I know what this is saying? I don't really understand what they mean autonomously grow plants through robotic functions. Do they have like just a little plant growing robot that like kind of goes around and like digs holes and like plants little plants?
Yeah, it kind of reads like it gives no more information than the phrase autonomous farming in space itself,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
that's very true actually. Like we know that it had robotic functions, electrical systems, and mechanical structures, but that's like kind of a given.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like there's hydroponics, but then there's also like vertical farming. And then like for electrical systems, I'm thinking, are you talking like a moisture sensor or, yeah,
I
it
think,
could be more specific.
yeah, I think it's like a little like Wall-E sort of guy that just like goes around and like plants little plants. But of course, I don't really know. So I'd say be more specific about function. Also say goals too. Like what was their goal of the project? Was it to like be able to plant, 20 plants autonomously? Was it for the moon? Was this for moon? I'm guessing. Maybe it's just floating in space. All right. Generated system requirements that describe function, features, and feasibility of product along with test plans to validate requirements. That looks like it was cut and pasted from the project description. Their what they had to do in class. If they gave me examples of what sort of requirements were important and like what sort of tests they had planned to, carry out to validate the requirements, that would be really helpful. But just saying that they did it doesn't really give me like peace of mind to know that they actually know what they're talking about. Does that make sense? Like I want to know what it was. What did you do? What were the requirements? And like how were they going to be tested? And like why were they important? That kind of thing. Presented weekly progress work and research with team to advisors to ensure technical requirements were met to complete project on time. Okay.
I feel like it's sort of can either be reworded or it's almost kind of not even necessary to mention. Like, particularly because the way it's phrased, it's not that this particular individual alone was presenting a team's information, like synthesizing information from multiple people and then telling it to someone else. This just sounds like you attended a meetings with your team every week.
Yep, that's what I read it as too. And the advisor said, "Hey, how's this project going?" And you said, "Hey, it's going fine. We'll finish it on time. Don't worry." And that was that. I really want more elaboration on the first two bullet points, the like hows and the whys. This is like a fine bullet point because I know, like in the real world, you do have to present your progress and keep project managers updated with what you're doing. But I don't think it's as important as the first two bullet points. And I'd rather see, like, did it work? Were you actually able to complete your goals? Did you do a presentation? Did you do like an essay or like report at the end? Like, kind of don't really know what this project culminated in. I guess they're still doing it.
Oh, I actually didn't realize that still says present. So maybe
This seems like a long time.
That actually confuses me. Yeah, that it says present still.
Oh, this is for. I think they mean. Oh, okay. So I think what they're trying to. They just listed the time where they were at Florida Institute of Technology. These aren't the times of the individual projects.
Well,
oh yeah, no, yeah, I figured that. That was what I was saying earlier. It just seems like a way to artificially make it seem like you have like a multiple additional years, even though these were all individual projects.
Perhaps they graduated and forgot to change that from present to May 2021. Because above in the education section, it does say May 2021 as their graduation date. So I would assume that their academic projects were complete by the time they graduated.
Yeah, it's a fair assumption.
All right, let's go on to so any other thoughts on this? I think this is a really cool project if they would give us a little more information about like what they did. It's probably like all theoretical though, which is sad, but whatever. Design for manufacturing and assembly. Let's see it. Performed a full something analysis on doorknobs and redesigned parts to reduce total assembly time by 30% and number of components. By what? Usually if you say reduce total assembly time by X, you'd say a number of components by Y. Just to keep parallelism. I have no idea what that analysis is. Maybe being a little more generic about it. Is that like FEA by hand? Is it like just mechanical advantage? Like what is it?
Googling it here.
Generic. Or generic plus what is this? Okay.
it's an analysis in terms of manual handling time, manual insertion time, total assembly time, design efficiency of the design, and manufacturing method for the design. So, like manufacturing efficiency. Right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Maybe just say manufacturing efficiency. Ideally, oh gosh, no. Okay, ideally you'd say, well, I guess they do say they reduced the total assembly times by 30%. I would actually switch those two. I would say, because you first reduce the number of components, and then secondly, you reduce the assembly time. I would say flip-flop those. How do I even write that?
And not that I think this clarifies anything, but apparently the more general type of analysis that this is a DFA, a detrended fluctuation analysis.
What? Not design for assembly? DFA?
Maybe it is. I don't know. When I look at DFA analysis, that's the Wikipedia article that pops up.
Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Reported results. You already said that it was successful. I guess that's. I kind of didn't know what their goal was. Was their goal to reduce by 30%? And they met the goal, or did they like exceed the goal? Like, was the goal to reduce the assembly time by 10%, and they just went above and beyond? I don't know. Or maybe it was a really crappy doorknob. I don't know. But I'd like to know what the goal was. I don't like when people write the grade they get in the course as a result, because grades are so subjective. It doesn't really matter and mean anything to me. So I would actually take that second bullet point out in my mind.
I agree.
Oh, I think you were right about the design for manufacturing, actually.
Yours sounded better. I don't know.
No,
Okay.
reading into it a bit more. I'm not sure either way, but just when I look up that name of the analysis, I see DFMA, which is
Design for
design-
manufacturing and assembly. Yep.
Yeah. I guess I saw somewhere where I dropped a letter. I was looking up DFA.
That's okay. Thank you for your assistance. I appreciate it. All right. So we have one more section, one more little thing. Computer aided engineering. Designed and modeled a pair of cable cutters with respect to size specifications. That's a little strange. To produce 450 newtons at cutting edge of blade by applying 45 newton at handle. I don't understand what they mean by say with respect to size specifications. Like when you design and model stuff, it always has to be to size, right? How else would you model it? Am I missing something here?
Probably just means there was some requirement like can't be more than half a meter long or something.
Oh, so they mean requirement instead of specification?
Perhaps.
I don't know. Okay.
Or it was specified to be some exact size. I don't know.
Or perhaps they said, okay, you need to, be able to produce 450 newtons at the cutting edge. What size does it need to be? And model it. Maybe it kind of was like a backwards project.
Yeah, perhaps it would help to clarify that there in saying, if they had to be a certain size or within an envelope, to state that, and to just rephrase it if what they were doing is determining the size needed to get that leverage.
Calculating. I honestly might take this entire project out. Perhaps the other project too. But let's do one more. Okay, produce full SolidWorks drawings and conducted FEA. I would say in ANSYS workbench. To find, I guess maybe to find. Equivalent stress, force reaction, deformation, and safety factor. Now, what would be even amazing is if the person who wrote this resume could connect the results that they see in ANSYS to the original design, and say that like, hey, my original design, while my deformation is fine, my safety factor is actually low, or something like that. Or, the cable cutters won't actually be able to withstand a 450 Newton stress or 450 Newton force. And the deformation will be like really crazy or something like that. So I think it's fine that they said, hey, I did this, but it would be even better if they could connect like why they did it, like to, and like connect the results like to the project, I guess. So I'm gonna say like, how do the results connect? How does like everything connect together? Like, it's fine if you, it's great that you know how to do this, but you need to know what it means as well. I have a feeling that this was a CAD course and they said, okay, everybody has to do a final project. And so they did it because, you know, it was a requirement in the course. They said, okay, everybody has to conduct FEA on their thing. But like, we want to go a little bit deeper than that. Okay. So we went through it all. I think they need to be specific, a lot more specific in this capstone project and in their production engineer job, and then also in their first longer mechanical engineering internship. Basically, I think that the last two projects are sort of like really just like longer homework assignments. I don't know if they necessarily, what do I say? I don't know if they necessarily belong on the resume if they have other strong stuff that can, you know, take its place. I think if they're more specific about the other jobs that I was talking about, then they probably won't even need them anymore. In my mind, what do you guys think? What's your overall impression?
Yeah, no, I agree with that characterization.
Well,
Definitely
going back,
more specific all around the board. Go ahead, sorry.
no, you're fine. My bad. Well, one thing, I know that when I was kind of like in earlier drafts of my resume, I was super paranoid about filling the page. And then I realized I'm filling this page to the gills only for the format to be way too like tight. And the first thing we said about this resume was that the margins were a little squished. So, you know, just mostly because this person has a pretty good some pretty good experience now. They definitely need to kind of like let go of some of the older stuff so that I can let the resume breathe and really highlight what is great about the resume, because the resume has whether it can be regardless of the format, like the education skills and experience up top is all pretty solid and need to let that shine a bit better.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that they don't really need to rely on those older projects that, you know, they probably did a really long time ago. And I think that they have plenty of space to work with. I don't think space should be like an issue here.
Yeah, it would be a shame if, despite the fact that they have great stuff here, that someone's like, "Oh, this is too compact." It's like, "Oh no, come on, man! Like that was probably a good resume."
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't think that they. It actually it's not that compact, at least in terms of what I've seen. The margins can come out a little bit, but I think they have plenty of room. They even, honestly, they even could probably go drop down like a half a point font size if they really wanted to. And their header is really big. But there's like basically what I'm trying to say is there's room to play with the formatting, but they just need to get the details in the content.
Yeah, I just realized the big arrow for the margins and the big title. Yeah, and then font size. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Even if they wanted to leave it as is, there's actually space to move this around. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's not like there's like, you know, they're not like, you know, begging for space. They do have a couple of things that they could play with, but I think that adding more details would help them a lot.
And also, even with the size of the title, they could probably bring the whole resume up just a little bit by playing with the header settings.
Yep.
Right? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I usually like to say have the top header and the bottom header be equal. which it seems like it's pretty close on this one, but they could even, play with that even more if they wanted to, I think. All right, so we
Final
go ahead.
point from. I know we talked about it earlier, but I feel compelled to bring it up again. Do you guys think not expounding on additive manufacturing, like saying what kind of additive manufacturing it was, is a good thing to do?
Okay,
Like,
in the skills
even
section or
like,
in the bullet points?
in the second intern experience, utilized additive manufacturing.
Okay.
Both of them. If you just say additive manufacturing, I'm going to assume you mean FDM printing, like you just have a
Yep.
desktop printer.
That's what I would assume too.
If you've done any other kind, I think that absolutely should be specified, whether it's SLA or laser centering. If you're doing metal printing, whether you're doing, again, laser centering, or if you're using a different method, there's all kinds of 3D printing, and most of the types are pretty niche. But specify if you've done anything but FDM, FFF.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even say what they're 3D printing. So I'd first want to hear what they're 3D printing, and then I'd care a little bit more, I guess, about like what type of 3D printing they're using. But honestly, I think to triage or to hit the stuff that's most important first. First, tell me like what you're actually doing, and then we can go into details about like the specifics of how you're doing it. Why you're doing it that way. Stuff like that. And it says that they're rapid prototyping, which, I mean, when I think of rapid prototyping, I think of like somebody has an idea about how to make something better, and so they just print it and see if it works out, and if not, then they change it, which is really useful for like senior projects, like when you're doing that sort of design phase. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I can't really say what they're doing because they don't say.
No, I see what you mean. It's a fair point.
So yeah, more details all around. All right, so we feel good about this?
Yeah, we made good time this time.
Surprise, Kens, we did your resume. You weren't here for me to do it. Oh well. I have a really quick one we can do. It probably won't take too long. This is a user theory. Is theory online?
I do not see them in the room, at least.
Okay. So theory emailed us their resume. It looks like they are still a student and aren't graduating until 2023. So I don't know. I'm guessing they're going to be looking for internships, which I'm going to write on the top. So we've done a lot of fresh grad and recent grad resumes. So it's going to be hard to rein ourselves back in and realize that sophomores in college probably aren't going to have the same level of content, but that's okay. First off the bat, I think we need to put projects above work experience.
Yeah.
And then I might actually throw relevant courses into the education section. Thoughts about that?
I think either one is fine in my opinion, because there's so much room to work with. I think you can get away with either one. But I suppose if I was looking at first glance, I would assume it's in the education personally.
Yeah, and I like dates on the left here.
The only thing about putting the courses in your education is that I would say in order of strength, it would be education, projects, work experience, and then courses. That's just my opinion. So breaking, like kind of slowing down the viewing of the projects, I'm not sure that's worth just for like or organizational purposes. I think the order of how they have it, except for swapping projects and work experience. Also, maybe this is kind of off color, but I noticed that their work experience starts all the way back in 2013. I know that like ageism is a thing, so maybe this is like not kosher or something, but maybe I would like kind of rig the age ranges, rig the years to not make it look so obvious that they've been a server since 2013. But I don't know, maybe that's not right or ethical. I'm not really
I
sure.
read that as a high school job.
Oh, okay.
That reads to me as a high school job. So I wouldn't necessarily feel that sort of similar thing, I guess. I don't know. So to go back to your original point, I think relevant courses might be a little bit more important than you think, because when you're still in school, it can be kind of important to know how far along in the coursework you are, like what classes you've taken so far, depending on like what internship you're applying to. Because if you apply to an internship that like does maybe more senior level, like electronics in this example, and you haven't taken those courses yet, it's probably good to know, like let the people know that you haven't taken those courses yet and you've only taken these courses. I've seen that happen because then the basically the company kind of struggles to have like a person that's supposed to be doing this high level stuff, but they're only a sophomore and they haven't taken the classes yet. Like, oh, like how is this going to work out, sort of thing. So I do think for internships that relevant courses is actually, kind of important. Definitely not once you graduate. Once you graduate, then it's like, oh, you have the degree, check that box. But like when you're still in the middle of your degree, it's kind of good to know like where you are, if that makes any sense.
No, everything you said makes perfect sense.
But
go ahead. On the reading the timelines, it can't be a high school job. Like, there's way too much time that's allotted. But I also don't think it's necessarily a problem either. And I think it's kind of hit or miss because, I mean, you could argue there's going to be a certain like potential for ageism, but at the same time, there might be an expectation or a like an additional value they might give to the maturity of someone who's already been in the workforce for a handful of years compared to someone who's fresh out of who's never had a job.
Yeah, I think that they can play it to their strengths. I would like them to have personal projects that they didn't do in school. I'm just realizing that both projects are intro to engineering classes. But again, they're still like young in their college career. They aren't graduating for a while now, so they have time. But I think as they gain more project experience with either A, academic projects done in class, or B, projects that they do outside of class on their own time, then that work experience can be shortened as they kind of get other things, more relevant things to fill their page up. How does that sound? But I think for now it's fine.
I agree with that. Probably going to be hard for them to do projects outside school because I think they're working while they're in school as well. But, maybe they're really good at time management.
Yeah. I think that if you want it enough, you can make it happen. But maybe that's kind of an asshole way of thinking about it. Let's see.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like I feel like maybe people would think either ageism or like late graduation, and even though this is like I'm certain a really good candidate, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just paranoid about the dates.
Yeah.
I don't know that, like, is that a thing though? Ageism against like a 30-year-old as opposed to a 25-year-old or something?
I
I think
don't. Well,
most ageism
ageism
is like a
is.
50-year-old or something, you know?
I feel like ageism is too reductionist. What I'm more afraid of is like, what if you have the same two candidates, but like one obviously has like that the 4 to 5 year graduation date, and the others just simply doesn't. That's what I'm more paranoid about, or is that totally unfounded, like totally baseless? I mean, what do you guys think?
Oh, well, they have the expected graduation date up.
Yeah, I think with that graduation date, they're probably targeting internships more so than jobs. And when they get to the point where they're graduated and looking for jobs, from what I've heard from other people on an office server who employ engineers, they generally actually like to see some past work experience, so especially something with an interaction with people, like working in a restaurant. Um, and I do agree that that's quite a lot of experience in a restaurant that would be at least interesting to an interviewer. And I think that could be a good point for discussion that's not necessarily a negative topic.
I think it becomes a negative when they don't have uh, the relevant experience that other candidates might have. But as long as they can do those projects in school and projects outside of school and internships, then and they can keep up with their peers, then I think it's fine.
And maybe something like this would help them save some time. I know we were talking about how they're going to school and working, and side projects could be hard for them. But I don't think it's a bad idea to take a school project and try and build off of it. So, like here, you have a water temperature sensor. They could build off of that and say, well, it doesn't just sense the temperature, but I've also added like some sort of composition sensor. It tells me how hard the water is, or something like that.
What do you guys think of supervisor versus server trainer, supervisor, office assistant?
I would pick 1 or 2. I think 4 is a little much.
I was thinking maybe supervisor and office assistant, or maybe even just supervisor, because then that implies I've been like a manager type for over 5 years, kind of thing. I mean, or am I reading too into it again?
I think the phrases trainer and office assistant are kind of two things that are within the supervisor role. You could almost just take those away,
right?
And it's kind of assumed that there's some added training and paperwork involved in becoming a supervisor. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this way at least it's like, oh, I'm like a manager kind of deal, and I think it's just a little stronger, just a little bit.
Okay. I just wrote a note down here. It said they learned SolidWorks modeling and finite analysis. What did they analyze? What did they make?
I think for this one, it might be good to maybe give them suggestions on what to do as well, based on they haven't really listed a particular goal, but maybe just I can't. You guys have gone through the engineering curriculum, so you might have insight that I don't. But just in terms of classic projects that are feasible for a sophomore to do, that gives them a certain those buzzword skills that are generally useful for an intern to have.
Honestly, I just tell people to go freaking Google it. Like, there are so many engineering projects out there, and so many people have like YouTube tutorials specifically for engineering projects. Like, there's just like a wealth of information out there that like our parents didn't have. Like, we sort of had a little bit at the end, but because of just how much information is available these days, I think that really they just have to look for something that they like, that they're interested in. So it's not, like soul crushing, and then like run with it kind of. Like I wouldn't specifically tell them to do, this Arduino project that I did when I was, that age. I would be more like, go look for something that you find interesting.
Hmm.
Is that fair advice? Is that valid? I don't want
Yeah,
you to.
yeah. I mean,
No,
that's
I
fine.
I
That's
agree.
fine. I think there's probably a certain tendency to have analysis paralysis or something of that sort around that. But I mean, yeah, it's what you said. Yeah, it's completely valid.
Like if someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this project. Does it sound cool? Like, does it sound like a good project?" It's much easier for me to respond to that than someone saying, "Hey, what project should I do?"
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
It's just because again, there are so many things out there. It just really kind of comes down to where you want your career to go, what you find interesting. And maybe, hey, you try a couple of different things. If you don't find the first one interesting, do something different,
Right.
try something
For
else.
sure.
So it doesn't have to be like kind of a one and done thing.
Hmm.
It can be kind of an exploratory thing, but I know that people are busy and it's hard, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. I mean, I just like the amount of like engineering related content on YouTube nowadays is just like mind boggling to me. But anyways, yes, I'm old. Let's keep going. I think that we have, I don't really want to touch the work experience because I think as the writer of the resume gets more stuff under their belt and like does more projects and stuff like that, I think they'll get more content to build off of into their project section, and maybe they can cut down a little bit of the work experience. But I think right now it's like fine in terms of like how old they are, or not how old they are, how far they are along in college, and what they've done so far. You caught me. And I hate the word learned. I'm going to write a comment about these two. Like,
I think this is like the one context where it actually is the proper description.
no.
But even then, you could say like, I mean, you wouldn't write it like this. You'd write it in resume writing, but you want to convey something like, I implemented this algorithm, or I implemented this technique in MATLAB, or
Yeah,
another thing is they already established that the software is in MATLAB, so they don't need to see MATLAB twice. Okay, they're like, yes, I use this language, and then they just say what they did with the language, which would be, well, did I implement some kind of sorting algorithm or whatever? I don't know.
yeah, it's I like to hear what a person did versus like what they learned, because learning is very squishy. Like you can I don't really know how well they learned it by just telling me that they learned it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Like I could say,
if you implement, also go ahead.
no, it's fine.
If you implement something, it's kind of a given that well, maybe not a given per se, but it's pretty likely you've learned it if you can implement it correctly.
I feel like I'm writing the same comment. What did you do with it? Did they say it worked? Did it work? Were they able actually to play it? I'm guessing it's a Space Invaders. They wanted to play Space Invaders, but did they actually make it successfully?
That's a good question, Emily.
Says question mark. Okay, I think we're done with this one. All right. Any last comments about this? I think that we're good with this. We did 2 for today, which I think is pretty unheard of.
Yeah, the 2 for deal was quite a ride.
Let's try.
It's
Try
good.
It's because we didn't have that many people in today. And you think that the view was clear enough? You didn't tell me to paste it in the comments like you usually do.
Yeah. This time, I don't know. Something I was just content with viewing it this way.
Sometimes
It was
can
blurry
have-
sometimes, but generally speaking, it looked okay. Sorry, Chase.
Yeah, no.
For some reason, if you zoomed in even a little bit, it would like clear up immediately, which leads me to believe maybe it's like a bug or something. Like not with your settings, like with like your iPad.
The stream, the bandwidth, or
Yeah,
something.
something weird because it's like, why would such a tiny amount of zoom look like going from 240p to like 480 or 720p, which is kind of crazy.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, some sort of.
But yeah, I guess for this particular resume, is the takeaway is basically as you gain more skills, phase out your work experience accordingly, or rather, just try to replace it with something that's very directly related to engineering. Be more specific.
Like once you get their first position, go ahead and boot out server, and then put the new position up top, and then right below it put just supervisor.
Yeah. I think that it's actually a very good place for like an underclassman, like freshman, sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say, it looks like they're doing a great job too. They're working while going to school. They're about 2 years into their degree, and they're holding up a 3.9. That's pretty good.
Not bad. Although it definitely doesn't get easier.
I was gonna say I was kind of hesitant whether or not I should say because it's basically entirely an opinion. But yeah, I would as soon as you can, if you can, to try to be able to focus on schoolwork entirely. I think it's way more. It's just such an improvement, quality of life and of everything else. I worked and went to school for a number of years, and yeah, it was. I was very hesitant to take on the debt, and I ended up going into some amount of debt, but I actually don't regret it in any way.
All right, I'm posting them into the large meeting room chat, and I think that's all I've got for today. But thank you for joining us.